the day everything changed. They say true love can survive anything, but what happens when the person you love no longer remembers you? Not because he stopped loving you, but because something inside him broke. And suddenly, you're just a stranger with a familiar smile. My name is Claire, and this is the story of how I stayed married to a man who looked at me with empty eyes, and how I learned to love him again, even when I had to start from zero. We had been married for 5 years. His name was Ethan, my best friend, my calm after every storm, my sunrise and my safe space. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. We made pancakes on Sundays. We had a playlist for every mood. He always left notes in my bag, and I always made him laugh when he was too serious. The accident happened on a rainy Tuesday. A truck, a flash of brakes, a phone call at 2:07 a.m. I remember every detail, the nurse's voice shaking, the way my heart shattered before I even reached the hospital. When I saw him lying there, bandaged, bruised, breathing, I thought, thank God he's alive. But I didn't know then that the man I loved would wake up without me. When Ethan opened his eyes, he looked past me, not through me, not confused, just like I was no one. The doctor explained retrograde amnesia. He had no memory of the past 7 years, no memory of me, of our wedding, our first kiss, our Sunday pancakes, nothing. I smiled, said I understood, told him I'd be there. But when he asked, "Are you the nurse?" I broke. Not in front of him, not then, but later, in the hospital hallway, curled up in a chair that smelled like antiseptic and sorrow. His parents came, his sister too. They knew me, they loved me. But to him, I was the stranger in the corner with tears she pretended were allergies. They gave me space, told me to be patient. But no one told me how to be married to a man who didn't know he had a wife. I tried to stay hopeful. I brought him our wedding album. He flipped through it like a tourist at a museum. "This looks beautiful," he said. "You looked happy." We were. But he didn't remember. I played him our favorite songs. He smiled politely, didn't hum along. I told him stories about our first date, how he spilled coffee on himself trying to impress me, how he proposed in the rain with a crooked smile and a ring that didn't fit. He laughed, said it sounded like a movie, but not his. Every day I walked into that room, I hoped to see it, that flicker, that spark of recognition, some trace of us. But all I got was kindness, politeness, and the ache of being forgotten by someone who once loved me like breathing. One evening I came home to our apartment alone. I sat on the couch we picked together, touched the pillow he used to hug, and I whispered to no one, "If he never remembers, do I still stay?" Then I heard my voicemail, the one I had forgotten about. A message from Ethan. Left the day before the accident. "Hey, babe, just wanted to say, I know I say it a lot, but I love you. Like deep down, ridiculous, heart-racing kind of love. Even when I'm late, even when I forget to take out the trash. I'm yours, Claire, always." I listened to it 10 times, maybe more, cried like it was a fresh wound. And in that moment, I knew, even if he forgot me, I remembered him. And that had to be enough for now. Loving him from the beginning, again. Falling in love with someone is magical, but trying to make someone fall in love with you again when they don't even remember your name, that's a kind of heartbreak no one prepares you for. I started small, a fresh hello, a gentle smile, a reintroduction to the man who used to know every corner of me, but now couldn't even remember my favorite color. He liked coffee with no sugar. Still, he hated pickles. Still, his laugh hadn't changed. That part was mine to recognize. But when I reached out to touch his hand, he flinched. Not with fear, just unfamiliarity. And it broke me more than any argument ever could. I came to the hospital every day, sat by his side, told him stories about this woman he once knew. I never said wife, it scared him. So I let him fall into the story, not as a character, but as a listener. "She used to make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs on Sundays," I told him one morning. He smiled. "She sounds fun." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Yeah, he thought so too. We started going for walks in the hospital garden. He'd push the wheelchair himself, even though he still had pain in his leg. He said it gave him purpose. What he didn't know was that he was slowly becoming mine again. Not as a husband, but as a person I was meeting for the very first time. One evening I brought a sketchbook. It was filled with quick portraits I had drawn of us over the years. At the beach, at our wedding, in bed laughing at something on TV. He flipped through them carefully, then paused at one. It was him reading a book, my head in his lap, his hand on my hair. He stared at it for a long time, then whispered, I don't remember this, but it feels familiar. I held back my tears. Maybe some part of you still knows. That night, I sat in my car and cried. Cried for every smile he no longer shared with me, for every memory I carried alone, for the ghost of a marriage that only I remembered. But I came back the next day, and the day after, because love, real love, isn't always about being remembered. Sometimes it's about choosing to stay, even when the story has to be rewritten from page one. One day, as I brought him a fresh bouquet of sunflowers, he asked, "Why do you keep coming?" I smiled. "Because you're worth it." He looked at me, eyes softer than usual. "Do I remind you of someone?" I nodded. "You remind me of the man who once made me believe that love was the safest place on earth." He didn't reply, just stared at me, as if searching his soul for pieces that might still have my name on them. And maybe, just maybe, they were still there, just buried beneath the fog. That night, I recorded myself talking to him about us, about the little things, our first trip, the way he always took the crust off my sandwiches, how he once danced with me in the rain just to make me laugh. Then I left the recorder by his bed. The next morning, he looked different. Not transformed, not fully awakened, but thoughtful, quiet, like the echo of a memory had knocked once more. "I had a dream," he said. "You were there, we were laughing. I don't know what about, but it felt warm." I didn't say much, just squeezed his hand. And this time, he didn't pull away. Whispers in the silence. There's a moment when the way someone looks at you doesn't quite match their memory, but it matches something deeper, something softer, instinctive, like muscle memory of the soul. Ethan had started looking at me that way, not with recognition, but with familiarity. He'd ask little things. "Do I like this song? Would I usually eat this? Have I ever worn this shirt before?" I'd answer gently, carefully, never pushing, never begging, just holding space and love. One day, he stared at a scar on his left wrist. "Do you know how I got this?" I nodded. "You fell off a skateboard, trying to impress someone." He raised an eyebrow. "Did it work?" I smiled. She said yes. He chuckled, shook his head. But that laugh, it wasn't distant anymore. It was ours. Later that week, he asked if I could show him photos again. I hesitated. My heart had been broken by that album more than once. But I brought it anyway. He flipped through slowly, paused at a picture of us on a Ferris wheel. "Why do I look so full?" I sat beside him. "Because you were." "Because we were." Then the photo of our wedding day. He looked at it longer this time. "I keep dreaming about this moment, standing there, holding someone's hand. I don't see a face, but I feel calm." I bit my lip, fought the urge to say it was me, but I didn't. I let him discover it, feel it, on his own. That night, I found a piece of paper tucked in the back of the album. It was a letter, handwritten by Ethan. "To Claire, in case I forget things, I want you to remember this for both of us. You were never my second choice. You were the reason I believed in forever." I stared at the letter, hands shaking. He must have written it sometime before the accident, as a joke, or as a just in case. But now, it felt like a prophecy, like he had loved me so deeply, he had planned to remind me even if his brain forgot. I didn't show him the letter, not yet, but I kept it, read it every night, like a secret vow I was keeping for both of us. One afternoon, he was reading a book, a romance novel, ironically. He turned to me and said, "Do you believe love can find its way back?" I looked at him, really looked, and softly said, "I think sometimes it never really left." He didn't respond, but later that evening as I was leaving, he stopped me. "Claire?" I turned, heart racing. "Would you maybe want to have coffee with me tomorrow, like as friends?" I froze, then smiled. I'd love that. Because even if he didn't know it yet, this was how we began the first time too. Whispers in the silence. Some memories don't return like lightning. They come back like wind, soft, elusive, almost invisible, but they stir something inside. After that night, something changed in Ethan. He began to notice more, not just me, but the way I moved, the way I spoke, the way my presence lingered even after I left the room. He started asking questions. What did I do for a living? Did we travel together? What's your favorite meal? He didn't ask like a stranger. He asked like someone trying to find the path home. One day I brought him our wedding playlist. He put on the headphones and closed his eyes. I watched his fingers twitch to the rhythm. Then a tear slipped down his cheek. "I don't remember this song," he whispered, "but it hurts in a way I can't explain." I wanted to scream, "Because it was our first dance!" But I didn't. Instead, I took his hand, placed it over my heart. Sometimes your body remembers before your mind does. After that, he asked me to tell him a story every night. Something real about us. So I told him everything, in pieces, not too much at once. Like how he once painted a wall teal just because I said I liked the color of ocean water. Or how we used to sit on the fire escape on summer nights, eating ice cream and pretending to name stars. He laughed, called it our bedtime stories. But I could tell his heart was listening deeper than ever before. He started remembering fragments, not events, but feelings. I think I hated Mondays. Did I always tap my pen when I was thinking? This jacket, it feels like me. Once, while flipping through a photo album, he stopped at a picture of us at a winter cabin. Snow in our hair, hot chocolate in hand, my face glowing, his arms around me. He stared and then hoped and he said my name. Not the way a stranger says it, but the way he used to. Claire, soft, careful, like a man speaking to something sacred. I felt my knees buckle, my heart soared, then crashed because the next second he shook his head. Sorry, that just came out, but it was enough. A whisper, a flicker, a sign that I wasn't completely gone in him. One afternoon, I caught him watching me. His gaze wasn't curious anymore. It was warm, familiar, almost protective. You're always here, what the geek said, even when I push people away. Why? I smiled. Because you're worth waiting for. Later that evening, he fell asleep during one of my stories. Head on my shoulder, soft breaths, completely at peace. And in that moment, I didn't need a memory. I didn't need a label. I had him, right there, heart to heart, breath to breath. Before I left, I whispered into his ear, I love you, not just for who you were, but for who you are. And even if you never remember me fully, I'll keep remembering for us. As I reached the door, he stirred in his sleep, eyes still closed, but lips parting. Don't go, Claire. My world stopped. He didn't see me, didn't consciously say it, but he knew. Somewhere in the silence, he remembered enough to not want to lose me again. The ghosts we loved. The day after Ethan whispered my name in his sleep, something shifted between us. It was small, subtle, but unmistakable. He greeted me with a softness that hadn't been there before, and not obligation, not curiosity, but recognition. Not of facts, but of feeling. We started walking without words, sitting in silence that wasn't awkward anymore. It was filled with something deeper, a rhythm, a shared presence that felt old and yet new again. One afternoon, I brought him a memory box. Inside, the concert ticket from our favorite band, a silly photo booth strip from our second anniversary, the keychain he gave me when he said, "This way, I'm always with you." He picked up the keychain, turned it over in his hand, read the initials engraved, C+E. That was us? He asked. I nodded. Still is. He looked at me then, longer than usual. It's strange, he said. I look at these things and it's like they're from someone else's life, but then I see you, and it's like my heart already decided you belong here even if my brain hasn't caught up. Tears burned my eyes, not from pain this time, but from the quiet hope that maybe we weren't starting over. We were simply continuing from where life paused. Later that evening, I found an old voicemail from me to him. I played it for him. Ethan, you probably forgot your lunch again. I left it on the counter. Also, I miss your stupid laugh. Come home soon. Love you. He chuckled. That laugh, huh? I nodded. It was the soundtrack of my life. He stared at the floor, then looked up and said quietly, Can I ask something hard? I braced myself. Of course. Do you ever wish that you had someone new, someone who remembers you, who isn't this half-blank page you have to fill in every day? That question shattered me. Not because I didn't understand, but because he was offering me an exit, a way out. He didn't want to trap me. He was still trying to protect me even when he couldn't love me fully back. I sat beside him, took both his hands. Ethan, I didn't fall in love with your memories. I fell in love with you, your loyalty, your dumb jokes, and the way you held my hand when I was scared and never let go. Even now, you're still that man. Maybe not the same version, but you're still my person. He was quiet for a long time, then whispered, I'm scared. Of what? That I'll never remember everything, but still fall in love with you again, and wonder what I missed the first time. I smiled through my tears. Maybe we just get to fall in love twice. Not everyone gets that chance. That night, I dreamed of our wedding day, the way he looked at me when I walked down the aisle, the words he whispered, I'll find you in every lifetime. I woke up with a single thought. Maybe this was that promise, trying to fulfill itself. When I got to the hospital, Ethan had a surprise. He stood up, no wheelchair, no cane, just him, holding something behind his back. I drew something, he said shyly. He handed me a sketch, rough, uneven, but unmistakable. It was us, on the fire escape, eating ice cream, laughing under the stars. I don't remember it, he said, but it came out of nowhere. I just felt it, and I knew then his heart wasn't a blank page. It was a faded journal with pages slowly reappearing when touched by love. Falling for him again and again. Love, when it's real, doesn't happen once. It happens again and again, in new ways with new versions of the same person. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was falling in love with Ethan, not the man I married 5 years ago, but the one sitting in front of me now, nervous, curious, trying his best. He started walking more, reading more, asking about the world, about me, like he was piecing together not just a memory, but a new future. We had our first date again. He asked me out as shy as a teenager. If you're not too busy, want to grab a coffee, maybe go to the lake? I laughed. Our lake. The place he once proposed to me under the stars. Now it was just the lake to him. But to me it was sacred ground. He showed up wearing a flannel shirt I had once gifted him. He didn't remember it was from me, but he said, "I don't know why, but I feel like myself in this." I smiled. "Maybe because you are." We walked by the water, talked about simple things, books, movies, why ketchup shouldn't exist. His opinion hadn't changed. Then he said, "I don't want to rush anything, but when I'm with you, I don't feel lost." I felt the tears come, again, always. "That's all I ever wanted," I said, "for you to feel safe." He reached for my hand, not accidentally, not cautiously. Deliberately, soft, certain. And this time I let myself feel it, not as a widow of a memory, but as a woman who was falling in love with someone new, with a familiar heart. We went to the movies. He got popcorn with too much butter, just like he always did. He laughed too loud, whispered terrible jokes during the previews. I looked at him in the dim light, and my heart said, "Yes, says this as love again." Back at his room, he pulled out a sketch, another one, of me. "I know it's not perfect," he said, "but I can't stop drawing you." I looked at it, a messy version of me, eyes too big, hair too wild, but full of life. "You see me," I whispered, "even now." He didn't say anything. He just looked at me like I was the only real thing in a world he was still trying to figure out. Later that night, he asked me, "Claire, are you afraid I'll forget you again?" I swallowed, the question I had avoided for weeks. "I used to be," I admitted, "but now, I think I could love you 100 times over if I had to." He smiled. "That's good, because I think I'm falling for you, and I want to get it right this time." I leaned in, pressed my forehead to his. "There's no right, just real. And you, Ethan, you've always been real to me." He didn't kiss me that night, but he held my hand as he fell asleep, and I knew. This wasn't a second chance, it was a new beginning. Learning to love the new I used to hold on to the past like it was the only thing keeping us alive. The wedding photos, the inside jokes, the memories I carried alone. But now, I was learning to let go, not of him, but of who I thought he had to be. The truth was, Ethan wasn't the man I married anymore, and I wasn't the woman he had proposed to. We were both different, scarred, softened, new. And yet, every day we spent together, we were learning how to be us again. Not the same version, but a version just as real. He started cooking with me, badly. He burned toast and forgot when pasta boiled. But he always smiled, always helped and clean, and laughed when I threatened to ban him from the kitchen forever. We built new routines, morning walks, shared books, a weekly game night, just the two of us. He still didn't remember the past, but he was building a future with me, one small, quiet moment at a time. Once, we watched an old movie we used to love. Halfway through, he turned to me and said, "I don't remember this, but I remember this feeling." I knew exactly what he meant. Because love isn't just stored in memories. It's stored in muscle, skin, breath, in how your body relaxes next to theirs, in the way your heart knows someone even when your brain does not. We had our first kiss again one night. It was soft, tentative, almost like a question. But it lingered, and in that pause between lips and breath, we answered something deeper than memory. He whispered afterward, "I feel like I've known you forever." I smiled through tears. "You have, in every version of us." Of course, not everything was perfect. There were days he got frustrated, when the blanks in his mind felt too big, when he'd forget small things, like where we kept the coffee mugs or what day our anniversary used to be. Sometimes I cried alone, not because he didn't love me, but because I missed being recognized. But then he'd do something so purely Ethan, like hum our song under his breath or rest his hand on my back exactly where it used to fit. And I'd remember, even if his memory never returns, his love already has. He began to sketch again, not from memory, but from imagination. But what stunned me was that so many of those sketches looked like us. Different settings, different styles, but always a woman who looked like me, and a man beside her always reaching for her hand. I asked him once, "Why do you always draw couples?" He looked at me and said, "Because love is the only thing that makes sense, even when nothing else does." And just like that, I knew we were okay. Not because he remembered, but because he chose me again every single day. Love didn't save us, we saved love. By showing up, by trying again, by loving who stood in front of us, not who we once were. And maybe that's the greatest love story of all. Not the one where we fall once and stay forever, but the one where we fall, forget, hurt, heal, and choose to fall again. When forever looks different. Forever used to look like vows under twinkling lights, like honeymoon tickets, like matching mugs and engraved rings. But now, forever looks like reheating soup, like answering the same question twice, like holding someone through a storm you can't see, but feeling their silence. Ethan and I were not the couple we used to be. And that wasn't a tragedy. It was a rebirth. He started remembering certain scents, cinnamon, my perfume, the smell of rain on a Sunday. He couldn't always name the memories, but his eyes would soften, his voice would lower. "I know this, I just don't know why." Sometimes I'd test him. "Do you remember the fire escape?" He'd frown, shake his head, but then say, "I see it in my dreams." That was enough for me. One morning, he left a note for me on the fridge. Messy handwriting, my name written like a signature he wasn't sure belonged to him yet. It said, "Thank you for not giving up on me. I may not remember who I was, but I know who I want to be, yours." I read that note 5 times, then pressed it to my chest, because in a world where so much had been erased, his choice to love me again was more powerful than any memory ever could be. We began talking about moving in together again, not because of duty, but because of desire. He asked questions, lots of them, about our old life, about how I liked my eggs, about what made me laugh. I told him, willingly, lovingly, like I was passing the baton back to the man I once gave my heart to, and was giving it again. There was a day I came home from work exhausted, rain, deadlines, heavy thoughts. I walked in and he had set the table, lit 2 candles, played the exact playlist from our old apartment. I didn't ask how he knew. He just said, "I had a feeling you needed to come home to us." And I realized then, maybe we couldn't get everything back, but we didn't need to. We were building new memories with the same love. Then came the doctor's update. He had recovered far better than expected, but there was a chance his memory may never return completely. No miracle, no sudden rush of clarity, no movie-like twist. Just this. What we had now was it. And I had to decide, could I live the rest of my life with a man who would never remember our first kiss, our wedding, the night he cried when I said yes? I looked at him that night, sitting across from me in that same flannel shirt, watching a show he didn't even like just because it made me laugh. And the answer came easy. Yes, because I get to fall in love with you every day, and you get to choose me, not because of the past, but because of who we are now. He kissed my forehead. Then let's make new vows. Just you and me, no guests, no speeches, just a promise. I love you for who you are and who we're becoming. And just like that, forever looked different. Less about remembering, more about choosing. Less about the past, more about the now. And if he forgets again, I'll still love him. Love isn't always about remembering. Sometimes it's about staying. Even when memory fades, even when the names blur, even when the story resets, and again and again. Ethan and I didn't have a big ceremony, no guests, no music, just the 2 of us on the balcony where we once watched storms pass in silence. He took my hands in his, still unsure of so much, but sure of me. "I may never remember the day I married you," he whispered, "but I'll never forget the way I feel when I look at you." I smiled, because in that moment I wasn't married to his past, I was married to his soul. We wrote our new vows together. I vow to wake up each day and choose you, even when the world feels unfamiliar. I vow to make new memories, even if the old ones never return. I vow to love you not for what we had, but for what we still can have. We kissed, not like a fairy tale ending, but like a quiet beginning, a restart button pressed with purpose. Years passed, and some memories came. No, it didn't. We had new inside jokes, new Sunday rituals, a new song we danced to in the kitchen on rainy nights. He never quite remembered the first time he said, "I love you," but he said it again and again and again. And that was more than enough. Sometimes he'd stare at me across the table, eyes narrowing like he was trying to place me. "You remind me of someone," he'd say. And I'd smile. "Someone lucky, I hope." He'd grin. "The luckiest." One night, years later, I found him in the living room, flipping through an old wedding album. He looked up. "I still don't remember this." He tapped the photo of our kiss. "But when I look at it, I feel it." I walked over, sat beside him, placed my head on his shoulder. "You don't need to remember the moment if you're still living the love." That night, I wrote something in my journal. A single line, no overthinking. "Even if he forgets me again one day, I will still love him. I will find him again, and I will love him again, and again, and again." Because love, the real kind, doesn't just live in memory. It lives in action, in showing up, in choosing the same soul across versions, lifetimes, and even amnesia. I don't need him to remember me forever. I just need him to wake up tomorrow and choose me again. And if he forgets again, I'll still be here, with his favorite coffee, with a smile that knows him better than anyone else. Ready to say, "Hi, I'm Claire, and I think we're about to fall in love." The end.